Good morning, everybody. We will start in 5 minutes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining in. Welcome to another session of Gyaan class by i4C, powered by Bootstrap. We have been having a series of webinars started from last Wednesday. These series of webinars were dedicated to the startup journey. The startup journey started with ideation, which was last week on Wednesday. And today the startup journey will focus on incubation. Many of us know the word incubation, but we actually don't understand what incubation means. And I think this next 1 hour, 60-minute journey of our lives we will take together will tell us a bit more about incubation. My name is Deacon Danny. And on behalf of i4C, we would like to welcome you to our Gyaan Class 2021 series of webinars. Today is the second edition, as I discussed, of our 6th series of webinars focusing on incubation. i4C continually focuses on student innovation, entrepreneurship, and seeks to solve the question of what comes next for a student in his or her journey. With successful events like Smart India Hackathon, Smart School Hackathon, Gyaan Hacks, and now Gyaan Class, we are constantly endeavoring to bring you the best platforms to help tune your knowledge levels to a finer point. We would like to thank Bootstrap Co-working for powering this event through their channels and network. Bootstrap is a premium co-working player based in Pune city. With 13 locations in Pune and a total of 17 locations across the country, they have a large presence and they offer amazing value for money services for clients who choose to work out of their spaces. A few ground rules today. Please mute at all times. For any questions on the Zoom platform, please ask in the chat box. For any questions while accessing through YouTube, please ask in the comment section. We will endeavor to answer all the questions at the end of today's session. Now, with great pleasure, I would like to introduce our speaker for the day. Nayaz is the Chief Operating Officer of JU Incubator, which is a technology business incubator recognized by DST, Government of India, and supported by Alstom France. He is closely engaged with the startup ecosystem, identifying, mentoring, and helping promising entrepreneurs in the technology space. He has served as a fellow and an advisor to the Vice Chancellor of Visvesvaraya Technology Institute, where he has designed innovative strategies to create entrepreneurial opportunities for over 400,000 students in 200 plus engineering colleges. Nayaz has gained exposure in leadership roles, working with technology startups, helping them grow rapidly from being small players to earning revenues in millions of dollars, and has founded companies. Leveraging his strong technology, product management, and marketing background, he has managed global multi-regional sales and technical teams and created footprints for high-end technology products across 3D visualization, optical simulation, mathematical modeling, IoT, etc. Nayaz is an expert in striking partnerships and forging international alliances. A master's in nanoscience and technology, Nayaz is also an active member of the scientific community such as IEEE and SPIE, and often participates in local and international conferences and workshops. Thank you so much, Nayaz, for being here today and sharing your insights. We are very happy and grateful to have you on board with us today, sharing your thoughts with the audience on incubation. So the floor is yours now, Nayaz.
Thank you very much, Jain and i4C team. Just give me 1 second. Yes. So yeah. So thank you very much for bringing me in to share a few thoughts. And as we are to start, I would request everyone before we start. So can we take a 30-second silence in respect of all the near and dear ones we have lost? It is also that we have lost legends in the incubation ecosystem. Through this silence, we could also pay respect to Dr. Joshi, whom we lost during the first wave, was the chairperson and advisor for the STEPS and TBIs. And this year as well, we have lost gems in the incubation ecosystem, Dr. Satyendra Kumar, head of KIET TBI Ghaziabad, and Dr. Ajita Noel of LV Prasad Eye Institute. So just for 30 seconds, let us pay tribute to them. Yeah. Sure. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope all of you are safe. All of your families, your near and dear ones are all safe. And I hope you are maintaining social distancing, as in when you need to go out. In this second wave of pandemic has been a big deterrent for everyone. So I would like to kind of place on record a big thank you to all the people in the front line, whether you're municipal workers, keeping the surroundings clean, delivering the food, medicine, or keeping the food supply going. Obviously to our nurses, our doctors, any aid workers or law enforcement people, and anybody in the front line who is at the front lines of this war. And we appreciate you, and we are in awe of all the sacrifice you're doing for our sake. And the second wave has hit very hard, as we all know, right? And all of you have already witnessed the businesses and the people's livelihood. So they seem to be kind of off mark, right? I mean, it's usually during such crisis, so such things are bound to happen. But we are kind of viewing it firsthand after we had looked at some of the crisis small crises in 2000 or 2008, but now this is kind of a challenging global crisis in terms of pandemic, right? And if you see that the second order effects of this pandemic, as we are seeing, is the record number of people are getting unemployed, right? And to keep the economy going, so that the people can pay for their basic necessities, so that they can pay for their kids' schools, pay for their food, pay for the medicine, healthcare, and generally to run a productive life, right? And in the recent past, say for in the last decade or so, you have seen it that startups have gained momentum, right? And a lot of these jobs have been created by the startups themselves. And the startups have become a driver of our economy. And guess what? Who are the drivers of these startups? The incubators and accelerators have become a driver of startups, right? As you would have already witnessed, you would have seen, you have observed all of that. So let's get into the topic of defining an incubator, right? So before we get into the complex topics, let's try to define what is an incubator, so that we all are on the same page. And I hear that there are like mixed audience, so some of you might have heard of incubation, some might have already are working with incubators. But in general, what is the definition of incubation? So generally for in layman's definition, and I use these examples very often whenever I'm interacting with people who have not heard of incubation, or say generally parents or grandparents kind of thing, so that they get a connection to what we are doing. And that is always a question of what are people at incubators doing, right? It's very hard to explain. So I generally use these two examples. So one of the examples, which is very synonymous to incubation, and most of the people would have heard about incubator, is actually the egg incubators, right? And if you see that a lot of these farm chicken, so these are the eggs, these chickens don't come from eggs, which actually get hatched by the mother chicken sitting on these eggs, and these chickens getting hatched, right? This is not the scenario. So whereas there are these machines called incubators, which actually kind of provide the similar kind of environment what a mother could provide to the hatching eggs, right kind of temperature, right kind of light, airflow, all of that is kind of provided through this incubator machine for eggs. And what is the goal of this machine, the incubator machine? The goal is to maximize the output, and in this case, more the number of chicks to get hatched, right? So that is the overall goal of an incubator machine. That we put, say, 100 eggs. So we want almost all of the 100 eggs, but at least worst scenario, 95 to 98 eggs needs to be hatched into chicks. And always there are like a couple of failures here and there, which is fine, right? So this is the goal of the incubator. So let's look at the second example, right? And I'm sure most of you have come across this second scenario. So wherein if a baby is born prematurely, you would have seen that in hospitals they generally keep it in a place or in a machine, kind of a machine, which is actually often called again incubation. But this time now, what is the goal of this incubation machine? Since the baby has born prematurely, now you need to create an environment where the baby is not able to directly accept the outside environment, right? So that is why this incubation creates a kind of environment very similar to what was there in the womb in terms of light, in terms of temperature, and so on and so forth, so that the baby kind of gets accustomed and slowly it can get adjusted to the outside environment. So I hope all of you have got the definitions of general incubators in common sense, right? And if you see that in both these cases, the idea, the objective of using incubators is not that, so they are going to be used lifelong in case of chicks or in case of the premature babies. So they are there only for a certain amount of time, right? And they are going to help who is using the incubation for a certain time so that they get accustomed to the outside environment and they are able to get adjusted and live a normal life outside of the incubators, right? So now let us try to relate it to the startup ecosystem. So what is a startup incubator now? So the startup incubator, considering our two examples, is again, you could say it's an environment. It's an environment created where we are trying to reduce the failures in the startups, right? And we are trying to, what is the objective or the goal or the outcome from the incubators? So what are we expecting from the startup incubators? We are expecting that the number of founders coming into the incubator, the most number of startups needs to go out in the world and be successful, right? And usually if you see that, what is the need of an incubator? Is there a need of an incubator? So like, okay, fine, we understood. I mean, we need to hatch a lot of eggs. That's why we need a machine. We need to bring the baby to the normal temperature, to the normal environment. So we need a baby incubator, but do we need a startup incubator? Of course, you could see that during those initial days, and you would have heard this from most of or everyone, that it is always a startup journey is a very lonely journey, right? And it is filled with challenges, problems, and all of that, right? And imagine this, by getting into an incubator, if some of those challenges and being that lonely journey, and if there are sort of resources provided during these initial days and time where the founders can now focus only on their product and the company rather than focusing on the peripherals, right? Say, let me give you a basic example, and let's take a scenario like 20 years back, or say 15, 20 years back. And if you wanted to start a company, one of the biggest overheads for you was to find a space and pay the rent, right? So that was one of the biggest deterrents if you wanted to start a company, because company, in order to register the company, you need to have a professional office space and all of that. And yeah, I mean, some people wanted to do it at homes, but if you really wanted to scale companies, if you wanted to look at the bigger picture, you always were looking at if I can have a space, right? And you need to pay advance, you need to pay rent, and it doesn't stop there, right? So you go ahead, when you start working, you have money, you pay for the rent and advance, but the actual problem starts then, right? So where now you have to take care of just not the furniture and everything, but also need to make sure that the person who's there to clean is coming, and he's not just coming, but he's also cleaning it, right? Be it in the normal spaces, be it in the workspace, be it the restrooms, toilets, and you need to make sure there's a soap in the toilet. And being a founder, you need to kind of think all of these things and along with this, run your company, build the product, and all of that, right? So if there is a way that some of these monotonous or not so necessary things are moved out of your plate, and you focus only on building the product, you focus only on building your company. So how good could that be, right? And though founders 15, 20 years back were not so lucky, we today have these ecosystems now in terms of incubators and accelerators, which actually kind of provide a lot of support, and this was just kind of infrastructure, right? Now, if you're a first-time founder and you don't know what to do, right? You don't know how to, where to find a co-founder. You don't know how to build an app. If you're not a tech person, you don't know how to build an app or a product. And if you are a tech person, then you don't know how to sell the product, right? So then where do you go for all of these help? And it gets challenging when you are alone and trying to look for all of these things. And again, a lot of these resources are provided, and I'll speak more about what services are provided by incubators and accelerators in the next few minutes. So this is the definition. So we have got the definition cleared out right now, and now let us look at a bit of history. So you might have heard about incubation, you might have heard about startups, how to build startups, how to grow startups, but usually, have you thought, how has our ecosystem, the startup ecosystem as we know it today, how did it evolve? How did it grow? How did it develop? And when did it all start? It did not start like 5, 6, 7 years back. You all realize that, right? And you will be shocked to hear that this all started in almost kind of 1980s, when our own Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, started a lot of entrepreneurship initiatives. So at that point in time, they were not as if they are today, where they are supporting directly entrepreneurs and providing funding and all of that. But it was more of in terms of identifying some key institutes, key universities, and providing them funding to just run, say, awareness about entrepreneurship, awareness about research, awareness about building products. So this was how it all started, and this was the first step of entrepreneurship. This was the first version of incubation, if I can say so. And it went on to kind of evolve from 1980s. It got kind of continuously got evolved. So further, the government was kind of very empathetic. They were interacting with all of these universities where they provided funding. They were interacting with students, faculties going through these programs, and they slowly moved from focusing on awareness to research to awareness on starting up, awareness of entrepreneurship, awareness on commercializing products. And it went on to kind of, there was only funding at that point in time to run some training programs, right? Awareness camps and all of that. So it slowly kind of then moved into providing some support to build, so say, research grants and so on and so forth. So products which could be commercialized were kind of started getting funded. And slowly it moved on to take a shape of technology business incubators, wherein government started providing support, just not for, so they looked at what was happening and they saw that the training programs are happening, but there are no dedicated staff to take this forward year on year and throughout the year, because some of the faculties in charge were kind of looking after these programs, but they had to teach, they had to do research, they had to do all of their activities. So that is when government said, okay, through this technology business incubators, we will provide some operating expenses as well, right? So then they provided the operating expenses for the manpower. And even before that, they started providing money to set up labs, research labs, and started creating that culture of making, manufacturing, building, research, all of that. So slowly, so when it became the technology business incubator became Nidhi TBI in the last decade or so. So where the government started providing grants. One was for your operational expenses to set up labs, but also to provide seed funding and all of that. And I'll speak about specific schemes in a short while. And this is how the ecosystem was grown. And there is no doubt that it got accelerated in the last 5 or 6 years. There's no doubt about it. But the founding stones foundation stones have been put in place since 1980s. And that is what the history is. And as you can see that DST, Department of Science and Technology, has played a very key role in making the startup ecosystem what it is today, right? Now, I would like to touch upon another key aspect. So where, again, you would have heard about a lot of, in a lot of these talks or discussions, people again talk about entrepreneurship, talk about startups, incubation. But again, one was the history, and second thing is, I feel that there are a lot of incubation superstars as well, which are unsung heroes, which you would know a lot of entrepreneurs who get succeeded, who raise $1 million funds and go on to become unicorns and all of that. But you might have not heard most of their names, the incubation managers' names, or the people behind in the incubation ecosystem who actually push some of these startups to go ahead. And I would like to place some light now as we move forward, right? So creating this vibrant incubation ecosystem in India, so one person's name kind of comes in bold letters, if I could say so. So it is Sri Harkesh Kumar Mittal, and he is one of these legends who actually led from the front in the various roles of DST, and it's and he was also the head and advisor for the NST division of DST, which is National Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Development Board. And he has played a very key role in the last three to four decades to bring a lot of initiatives to the general public through incubation ecosystem. So he went on to also, I mean, as any great leader, he went on to nurture the next line of leaders. And the next person's name I would like to mention is Dr. Anita Gupta. She is currently the head and advisor of the NST division. And today, most of these Nidhi initiatives, what you see are kind of driven in one way or the other by her. And it doesn't come from her today. And she has been in this ecosystem in the last, again, more than 2 decades, where she has I mean, when you talk to her, you will see that a lot of that energy rub off. And she mentions that, like, how in early 2000 they went to abroad as a first trip of incubation managers, and how they learned from other incubators across the globe. So that is, I mean, these kind of things have gone in the past, which generally we are in the startup ecosystem, either we are not aware of or we don't speak about these superstars in incubation, right? Some more names in the Department of Science and Technology are Dr. Praveen Roy, Dr. Naveen Vashish, Dr. Sapna Kaushik, and many more have joined in this journey, right? And these specific people have been the guiding light for the entire incubation ecosystem, the incubators and accelerators in India, right? So further, another name comes into my mind, Dr. Raghunandan Rajamani, and he was also the first incubation manager, if I can say so. At that point in time, there was no incubation managers. In those early 1980s, he got the first step, Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Park in Mysore, in Karnataka, in very own Karnataka here. And he was manager, and he went on to kind of continue the journey, wherein he became an executive director in the Incubator Association of India, the one and only Incubator Association in India, which is known as ISBA, ISBA. So that is Indian STEP, that is Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Parks and Technology Business Incubators Association. So and you know that now today, through his efforts and the efforts of all the people around him, so ISBA is a household name in the startup ecosystem, in the incubation ecosystem specifically. So a few more people, Dr. Suresh Kumar, Dr. Koini, Dr. Rajendra Jagdale, Dr. Bhupesh Sharma, Dr. Satendra, Dr. Joshi, whom we lost as well, right? A couple of them. But all of these people, and Dr. NVH Krishnan, who's also now current registrar at Jain University, they all kind of put in a lot of efforts early on to nurture incubation ecosystem in the last 2 decades. So, so some of them actually started as incubation managers, and they went on to lead those incubators, become CEOs, MDs of those incubators, and take this journey forward. Right? What an amazing story, amazing people, amazing things these people have done. And on the other side, so this was on the incubation side, but there were on the other side, there were also entrepreneurs, right? So there were also entrepreneurs like Narayan Murthy, like all of these, right? Ratan Tata, all of these people, be it Tata, Infosys, Wipro, and Dr. Chainraj Roychan, who is the founder chairman of Jain Group of Institutions, whom I have closely interacted and worked with. And as you can see that because they themselves were entrepreneurs, they went on to become leaders in supporting, nurturing entrepreneurs. And specifically the Jain Group itself has been nurturing entrepreneurs, funding them, providing mentorship since 2001. And as you can see that they were visionaries who could actually see this coming well before anybody else actually looked at, and incubation or startups was not cool at that point in time, nor there were plenty of incubators or co-working spaces out there to support entrepreneurs. And these handful of leaders were the people who actually were all to the entrepreneurship support ecosystem, right? And you should know all of their names and what contribution these unsung heroes have made in the last few decades, right? Last few decades, and what they have and how they have changed the face of the Indian startup ecosystem. And today, when we see it, we take it for granted, right? So this was about a bit about the entire the history, the people behind the incubation ecosystem, right? I hope most of you were not aware of some of these names, and many of you would also be aware of these names, but we need to kind of celebrate these names because we need more and more people walking in their shoes and take this responsibility on their shoulders to nurture the incubation ecosystem, to nurture the startup ecosystem, and help build this country through startups, and which is the prime driver of our GDP at this point in time, right? So now let's spend some time. It would also be kind of confusing for most of you to hear there is something known as incubator, then there is accelerator, and you have seen a couple of times. I also in my conversation with you, I used a few times incubator and accelerators interchangeably. And this is kind of another biggest challenge for a lot of people. So what is the difference between incubator and accelerator? So in order to understand that, let us look at the journey of a startup or a startup founder, right? And if you look at if a founder wants to start a company, right? And we will go in detail in a few minutes. But if you look at a broad sense, so there are different stages of running the company, right? So during this initial, there is an ideation stage where you're kind of doing brainstorming, you're coming up with ideas, you're finalizing on ideas, you have 10 ideas, you've scrutinized one idea, you go on to finally work on that one idea, then you go on to register a company, then you build the product, prototype, then take feedback from customers, build the product, and then go on to sell it in the market, and then go and scale the company, right? So this is the usual journey. And if you look at, we also have an additional term to add to your confusion is pre-incubation. So we also use a term called pre-incubation or pre-incubator, again interchangeably. So usually if you are at the idea stage, if you are at the stage where you are still working on an idea, it's still in your head, right? So people would not invest in an individual person, right? So they would only invest in an entity. I'm not talking about in terms of whether they invest in idea or what. I'm talking in terms of when the money comes in, it comes into the company's account and not an individual person's account, right? So at that point in time, you are generally into incubation when you are still in idea stage. And when you're trying to kind of build a prototype, you're trying to do this ideation and all of that. So you go into incubation stage, and there are again different incubators support startups at different stages. But in general, for the sake of our understanding, let's say that you are now registered a company, you're building a prototype. Now, till the time you've built a product where you want to sell it in the market, you are in the incubation stage, or probably you get a couple of customers, you're still in the incubation stage. And now when you have validated it from your customer, and now you want to scale, right? You had 10, 20, 100 customers. Now you want to go to from that 100 customers to 10,000 customers. From those 100 customers, now you want to go into 1 lakh, 10 lakh customers. So that is scaling. So now at this stage, the founder's thought process needs to be different from what his thought process was at the incubation stage. And when that scaling stage comes in, that is called as accelerator. So during this incubation, the thought process of the founder is to get the product out to a customer, get it validated with a few handful of customers. So this is the goal. And since the goal is this, the incubator provides the support system, the resources to accomplish these goals, right? So this is incubator. Now, when you want to scale, as I told you, right, few hundred customers to few lakhs, millions customers, now your thought process needs to be changed. Now your focus is not building the product or get the product out in the field. Now your thought process is, now I have sorted on my product. I know what the product is. This product is robust. Customers have validated it. Now I just want to sell it to millions of users. So you need a different thought process. And this accelerator usually a short term, usually ranging between 12 to 16 weeks, is will actually kind of give you that kind of a thought process, that kind of resources. The program is designed in such a way that in those 3 months, you build a robust strategy and then go on to raise funding so that you can implement the scaling strategy what you have built during the program, right? So this is accelerator. So if you have any questions, you start putting it in the Q&A section. We will, or in the chat. So we will take questions probably once we finish this. And so this is the usual difference between pre-incubation, incubation, and acceleration. We will talk about in terms of funding. I have a couple of slides to show you, which I will do it in a short while when we will talk about what funding stages play different roles in each of these stages, right? So this is the specific. So I think, yeah, let's take this time to immediately get on to talk about that. Yes, I hope you're able to see my screen. Deacon?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, so there are different types of incubators. Again, as I told you, the definition might vary. This is my definition. Other people's definition might vary. For the sake of understanding and for the sake of the first-time learners, I would put it this way. So I have divided the incubators into partial service incubators and full service incubators. 2 types of incubators. And if you see that partial service incubators are like co-working spaces, you have heard of WeWork, Beehive. Here in Bangalore, WeWork is a global co-working company. Of course, not in today's situation, but yeah, pre-pandemic, co-working spaces were thriving. There were comments made in terms of like every lane of Bangalore has more than 2 co-working spaces, so on and so forth. And here they're only providing infrastructure, right? Remember, I told you the story about if you want to start, there's a lot of infrastructure problem, and these co-working spaces only solve the infrastructure problem. They will provide a space, you can just go plug and play, just go start using it. No other resources. So the other type of is innovation center. Innovation center could be an research lab of any universities. So that is more of like innovation center, right? Again, there is more of research happening. Commercialization might be, might not be. Other founders, opportunity for them to take space and work might be, might not be. So that's why it is partial service. Technology parks, again, technology parks are in the same building. If you have multiple companies, R&D centers of multiple companies in the same building, they become technology park, right? So then full service incubators. So full service incubators are like multi-purpose. They're just not once, they just don't provide one specific thing like the infrastructure or the R&D lab or just commercialization for their own consumption. In each of those 3 cases which I mentioned to you, it could all of that 3 could together, or might be any permutation combination of those. They could be specialized. They could be specialized in terms of which sector they are operating, what stage of companies they're supporting. They could be technology business incubator. They could be kind of the business incubators versus the technology business incubators. You understand that, right? So they could be like supporting startups which are in brick and mortar because their dynamics are completely different. So incubators supporting a restaurant kind of companies or textile companies is very much different from a technology oriented, say for example, Swiggy, Uber, all of these companies, I would say, though they are in the food and transportation business, they are more of like tech companies because their backbone is a tech stack, right? So then there is virtual incubator, then there are specific sector-specific incubators, as I mentioned. So these could be the specialized things. So let's take a case study of our own incubator. JU Incubator, we are Jain University Incubation Center. JU Incubator is a brand. So we are a specialized incubator. We are a technology business incubator. We focus very much on supporting tech companies. We are a not-for-profit company. Others could be for-profit incubators. We are recognized and supported by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. We are a sector-specific incubator. We focus on food, agriculture, energy, nanotechnology, IoT, ICT. And since now it is virtual, we have added a few more sectors there. And now we want to focus more on technology also. So since we are a technology business incubator, now we have streamlined and said that we will work on any sector, startups working in any sectors, but working in computational and connected technologies can come to us, and we will provide all the resources necessary for them, right? So what are the services provided by the so-called incubators and accelerators? And these are, I'm talking about full service incubators, and these are the kind of differences, right? If you see the infrastructure is just one point there, and that is what co-working spaces provide, right? And rest all of these kind of are provided by most of the time academic incubators, DSC supported incubators, and as you have seen in today, recently Niti Aayog has started supporting the Atal incubation centers now. So infrastructure, obviously, which I already mentioned to you, accounting and financial management, shared administrative or office services, marketing assistance, people connectivity, networking, comprehensive business training. So those all you can kind of read. Let me just give you a use case kind of thing where where this shared administrative office services and all of these things are actually so useful, and why does it make sense for an incubator, for a startup to get into an incubator as well? Is, say for example, you start a company, and this company needs every year needs to do compliances and file their taxes and accounts, all of that, right? So if you are a startup individual, you go and talk to an auditor, he will easily quote you 30, 40, 50,000 rupees, which is usually the fees, and that is what you need to pay. This is like, because there is so much time and work involved. But whereas if I bring in an auditor or a company secretary into our incubator and ask him to spend 2 days with us working with 10 startups, so he needs to spend just 2 to 3 hours with one company of ours, and he's getting all of those companies here. He need not travel. They are like available in the same building, in the same room. He just need not even move around. And all of these startups will spend 2 hours with him and give him all the necessary documentations and all of that. And his kind of time and work is kind of reduced in such a way that, because there are not many transactions at this stage, early stage, and the auditor can actually kind of charge them much lesser. And the same 50,000 rupees or 30,000 rupees is divided between 5 or 10 startups now, right? And that is how they kind of get the benefit of being in an incubator. And similarly, these companies don't need a reception, don't need a person sitting at the reception answering. So the incubator's reception become each of these startups in reception, right? These are some of the common things. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of events happening. You get to connect to peer-to-peer. In our cases, comprehensive business training. Jain University also has a CMS business school. We have a business school. So we bring in a lot of the business faculties from there. We bring in a lot of founders, our previous founders, to come and train our current incubators, right? So specialized equipment and labs. So different incubators have different types of labs. Usually prototyping labs are available. So our university has provided access to our incubating companies. Depending on the availability, our incubating companies can use some of those labs. So links to higher education, higher educational institutions. As you can see that if you come to our incubator, it is much more easier to connect to an educational institution. Here in our case, it is Jain University is just a stone's throw away, and we can easily connect and work with some of the faculties and researchers at the university. So access to knowledge, all of that, right? And let me give you a specific example again in terms of access to financing or helping them raise funds from venture capital firms or big banks. So for example, let us consider there are 2 startup companies, one in an incubator and one is just, they've just started the company, they built the product, but they're on their own. They don't have much connections. They're trying to build connections. Both of them build a project report and go to a bank for funding. They want to raise some funds from the bank and they go and place these project reports in front of the bank. The bank manager reads both the project reports, but then he approves only one. Which one would that be? The incubator one, the justification or the reason for that is they will see that this company is actually incubated at an incubator which is recognized by the government of India, which is actually backed by one of the leading universities in South India. So they have already done their due diligence. They are already supporting them. There's someone to kind of tell them that where they are going wrong. Whereas in the other person's case, he's just an individual, right? So those kind of credibilities come to these startups, and that is the reason why you should, even if you feel that you know everything, it is always a good idea to go to an incubator, work with an incubator, and make use of the ecosystem developed within the incubator. And not to, I mean, it's not necessary to say that these incubators come with network of business angels, network of mentors, network of venture capital firms. So they are connected to incubators, accelerators across India, right? So these are some of the today's enablers. There's a growing culture of R&D, the innovations in field of finance. There's better infrastructure, just not physical, not in terms of roads and flights, but also in terms of the internet speed and all of that. And there are specific schemes for entrepreneurship development, right? So this is the pre-incubation and incubation stages in the incubator I was talking about. So till the time of you're getting into prototyping your product, you could be in the pre-incubation, and then you go to an incubator to seek the labs, the facilities there to build a prototype, test the market, get a few customers, and then of course go to market and do some test marketing and then get into go to market, right? And this is usually the venture funding cycle and different stages of the incubator. And if you see that when the venture is conceived, this is pre-incubation stage, right? So because this is in your head and nobody is going to invest in an idea in your head. Right? There was a time when people used to do that 2 decades back, but not today anymore. So here you need to bootstrap from funding from your friends and family, and then you go and register a company, build a prototype, and then you go ahead, because now you have a company, you have a product, you have built some traction, you attract some seed funding, right? You attract some seed funding from angel investors, from, if you have access to your friends and family, you can go there. And if you are a second-time founder and you have sold your first company, you already have a lot of money which you need not go to an investor or friends and family because you already have the money and you can still bootstrap, right? So at this point in time, you go and build more traction, sell more products, build your balance sheet, and then again your venture is valued, or VC funding or a bank kind of finances at this stage, and then further valuation by merchant bankers, and at this stage the VC exists. And each of these stages, if you see, the previous investor exits in the next stages. For in this case, if you see that people who would have bootstrapped can actually, the friends and family exit at this stage when angel investing comes in. And when you go to VC funding, a lot of these angel investors and your friends and family who have invested actually exit, and VC funding kind of plays a critical role, and VCs take a lot of those stakes. And when it comes to the last stage, it becomes an IPO or a strategic investments. And a common example I speak is about Walmart taking over Flipkart. So when Walmart wanted to enter India, and with Flipkart, it was much more easier for them to be across India with just a fraction of a time, right? So strategic investors also play a key role. And what are the opportunities? How do you how do you become an entrepreneur, right? If you are a prospective entrepreneur, what do I do? Is most often question, and that's why I included that in my slide. One is if you have an existing family business, go ahead. There's still room for improvement. You can re-engineer some of these products. You can bring in some new innovation. You can expand it into different geographies, different segments of the market, or you can actually start a new vertical within the existing company itself. So if that is an existing, if you have an existing company or existing ideas, and if you are coming up with a new idea, you can test your hunch by actually kind of building a prototype and trying to putting it out there and try and see how the users, clients responds to you, and look at that. And the next one is research driven. So research driven, when I say, you can actually try and talk to a lot of a very simple example is either NDRI, CFTRI in Mysore, the Central Food Research Institute, and a lot of these food products from CFTRI is readily available. You need not do an R&D to build the product. So the product is built. You just need to take the license from them, and go ahead and become an entrepreneur by creating marketing channels to sell these products and create wealth for yourself and the country, right? So let me just speak quickly about a few points. So probably I'll take a couple of minutes and then wrap up for questions. So Government of India has seed support grant. As I told you, TBI in that flow of events in the history. So eventually, when they started giving money for creating labs, for running the operations of the incubators, they then realized that most of these startups are able to build the product through the labs created, incubators are able to support them, bring resources to them. But after a certain point in time, investors are not showing interest because now investors need to see traction, right? That is when now they decided that let us give seed support grant as well. So this seed support grant is up to seed support grant. When I say it is not grant for the startups, it is a grant for incubators, and incubators in turn invest in startups, wherein they either give it as soft loans or they can take equity against those that money they invest in startups, right? So so it can take either forms of loan or the equity. So then there is this Prayas prototyping grant. So here, any innovator, any citizen of India, if he is an innovator working on an innovative idea, can get up to 10 lakh rupees to build the prototype, right? And then there's an entrepreneur in residence. In entrepreneur in residence scheme actually kind of provides, I mean, you can see that, I mean, governments have become so empathetic today that they have seen that a lot of these youngsters who want to start companies, who build products during their final year studies, they're not able to take it to the market because of the peer pressure, because they have responsibilities, because they have to pay the bills, right? And that is the most important thing. And governments kind of empathized with this and realized, and they said that if at all you ditch a job after your final year and you want to take up entrepreneurship, experiment it for the year or two, then we will give you a fellowship of 30,000 rupees, up to 30,000 rupees every month, so that you can take care of your bills, but then you can focus on your idea to take it to the market, right? And then there are a lot of these grand challenge competitions, which is also one of the schemes in the government of Karnataka, where they bring up a specific challenge and then they attract startups who are working in that domain. For example, I mean, obviously in Bangalore, traffic was a big problem. I say was because today, due to lockdown, we don't have traffic in Bangalore. Believe me, we have. I mean, and today I'm looking at a lot of these WhatsApp posts where people are missing Bangalore's traffic. But anyways, jokes apart. So startups working in this particular domain could have applied to this, and they would get like 5 lakh rupees initially to build the prototype, and then they could have a few of these selected ideas will get a follow-on funding of up to 50 lakh rupees to get their product to the market. So that is one of the schemes. And in the government of Karnataka, there's New Age Incubation, or now they call it New Age Innovation Network, where they have given grants to specific institutes in the non-metro cities. That is, if in order to get these grants, the institute needs to be outside Bangalore. And they have created almost one in every district now. So where they provide almost 3 lakh rupees per idea, up to 10 ideas in each district. So students who are studying can actually kind of make use of this. They get this 3 lakh rupees grant to build a prototype, and this is a grant. And obviously the grand challenge is also a grant. And similarly, there is Elevate. Well, I mean, in Karnataka, most of the people know. Elevate is again a seed funding competition here run by the government of Karnataka, where the startups get up to 50 lakh rupees in funding. And believe me, the screening, the shortlisting, the scouting is done in such an awesome manner. I have seen it firsthand. I'm a jury on the panel of Elevate. So they actually run it like any other professional VC fund runs a fund, but provided this is a grant. So individuals can actually try internship. They can do pre-incubation. They can join a pre-incubation program to know a bit more about incubation ecosystem, do an internship in a startup or an incubator. Today, a lot of incubators are also providing internship or ready-to-fly ideas like the CFTRI ideas. So with that, thank you. And you can anyways drop me an email if you want to reach out to me, if you want to know more about Jain University Incubation Center's programs and how we are supporting students and entrepreneurs. I'll be happy to. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and I'll take a few questions.
Thank you so much, Neha sir. That was indeed a very engaging session. I am sure the participants have learned many new and interesting concepts today. So we will move on to the question and answer part. I would request participants, if they have any question or queries, they can type in the chat box. We will take one by one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a question from Narendra Modi. He is saying, अब वैक्सीन का टीका लगाया, कोरोना को भगाया, सभी भारतीयों को रिक्वेस्ट है कि कोरोना से सेफ रहे. नहीं, it's okay. I think he has written something else.
Yeah. I think the last chat, I can see a question there. Can you read the question, Patish? Do you want to read the question? Last. Okay, this is a direct message to me. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
let
can
me,
see.
yeah, I thought this is for everyone. So I have a question from, I'm not able to read the name. It's not clear here. So you have talked about startup coming incubator. What about company needing startup support for some of their projects which they want to outsource a new product idea or module? The question is very vague. So if you can reiterate the question, it would be helpful. So the next question is, what is the way of making startups collaborate together for a new network type of idea of a government department? Okay, so see, what is the way of making startups collaborate? So see, the collaboration of in startups is like any other collaboration, partnerships actually is done when you have complementing strengths in each other, right? It is not that we say that, okay, X startup, Y startup, you together and go ahead and do it. It doesn't work that way as in any other companies as well. The collaboration actually kind of works when there are complementing technologies or complementing solutions, which can become an entire solution and then go in as a solution to the government. So 2 points there. One is, of course, again, I would still say if you are a part of the incubator, there are a lot of companies there, not necessarily companies within the incubator, but also there will be a larger network of companies which the incubator will have, graduate companies, alumni companies, the companies which have applied to the program. It is not just those limited number of companies which you are interacting with, but there could be many more, hundreds more startups. In our case, we have incubated, say, less than 50 companies in the last few years, but we have worked with close to, we have interacted with close to 800 startups. So we have that larger network, right? So either you can kind of explore on your own to see this, or you talk to your incubator and say, this is my solution. If there is a way you can broadcast that there is this solution which is necessary for the government, we provide partial solution. And if there is anybody else who can provide the partial solution, we can be a part. And you know that there are a lot of the networking platforms like TIE and so on and so forth, and i4C, all of these platforms where you can actually kind of go and interact with other startups and try to build that collaboration. That is point number one. Point number two is, now as you know that government has created this GEM portal, which is government e-marketplace portal. So if you register yourself, you can actually go ahead and bid for a lot of those projects in the government. I hope that answers the question.
So there is a second question from Ridil. My LLP is registered at Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh. Can I still register, or can I apply at any incubation center in country, or I have to go only to Kanpur?
Okay, I got it. So very good question, and very apt. The answer, if you would have asked me this question 2 years back, I would have said yes, unless you want to expand business in some other geography, right? So what I meant to tell you is, in a normal scenario, not in today's scenario, if you are registered in Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh, and if you want to target your target customers in Delhi, so you can relocate to Delhi, and you can, wherever you are physically present, you can actually get incubated there. So for example, your market is Delhi, your couple of founders are there, and you're trying to sell in Delhi. So you can actually be incubated there as well. It entirely depends on where your physical team is, right? But today, when you ask me this question today, the entire way of working is flipped 180 degrees today, right? And today it is not a constraint. So today, most of the incubators are now running virtual programs. I mean, we are kind of now open to take virtual startups right now, startups from a different location, support them. So, and we actually currently have startups from across India. And if you see now today, you can actually see which incubator is providing value, and then go ahead and apply to that specific incubator in that geography. And it really does not matter where you're located. But I would still personally prefer wherever your market is, it is better to become an incubatee be a part of the incubator in the location where you're trying to sell. Because that way you will get access to the experts in that local ecosystem who would be more versed with the dynamics of that specific region. Okay.
Thank you so much. Is there any question?
Yeah, I think we are almost on time. So yeah, if there are some questions, we can take. Otherwise,
Yeah. So there is one question from Manpreet. I have registered a company in UP with 2 co-founders and it's in early stage. Still not launched, but concept is ready and company is ready to launch. So how can you help us on this? Will company register in PM startup or what? Can you please guide?
so that is again a vague thing. If you're talking about, I don't know what does he mean by PM startup, but if you're talking about like Startup India, if you can register, if you can be a part of Startup India initiative, yes, you can. Once you've registered a company, it doesn't matter anywhere in India. If you're registered a company, you can go ahead and register yourself under DIPP, right? And become a Startup India and get the benefits of Startup India. But I would also encourage you guys, one point I did not mention in terms of the incubator is the incubator provides a lot of those stuff what I mentioned to you, but they also provide you a lot of, let's say, let me call it for the lack of words, goodies. When I say goodies, say for example, you're starting a company, right? For example, a company of Manpreet Singh is just a startup. They're bootstrap. They don't have a lot of money to spend on a lot of these technology tools. For example, let's say our incubator provides over $5,000 worth of AWS credits, $20,000 of Google credits, a lot of such things, and we provide Zendesk licenses. HubSpot is our partner. So a lot of these entrepreneurs, startups can actually get benefited in kind as well when they go to an incubator, and that could also be one of the reasons where you say $5,000 is a lot of money for any tech company to put into a cloud, and that could be your 1 or 2 years budget on AWS if you are just starting up. And if that is taken care, you can see that there's a huge value add in terms of these so-called goodies as well. Yeah. So I see another.
Yeah. So there is one more question from Pawan Patil. The most common question from student that firstly we have to do job, make base, then go forward to company, or do startup directly. Which way is better, or which is the better solution?
Okay.
Go for a job or go for a startup first.
Okay, so I would say this is a very very difficult question to answer, but I will try to answer it in a very easy way. It actually depends. It depends on you. Okay, it depends on you as an individual, and I would rather say if you are confident enough to start a company, if you are confident enough, there is no such thing as I will learn something in my job and then I'll come and do startup. There's no such thing in today's world. So you can learn 10 times of that when you do your own startup, and you can still fail. You can go back to job and all of that. But I would recommend, a lot of this youth is to actually do a startup. Why do you have to wait till you graduate to do a startup and then decide whether I'll do a job or a startup? So what I generally suggest, and this is my belief, personal belief, is you need to do ideation. That is, which idea to work on in your first year, start building a prototype in the second year. In the third year, you start taking that product to the market, get feedback, not sales, but find some pilot customers, and then build the product robust in your third year. And in fourth year, start doing proper sales. Take the product to the market. And fifth year, you will never have this question. You will never ask this question again, because you know what to do after graduating, right? So yeah, that is my kind of a simple answer to your complex question, and it entirely depends. And my suggestion is to you should get started, and with that, I think Patish, we can stop taking questions as well.
Right, right. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Najji, for taking out time from your busy schedule to address this session today. We look forward to many such opportunities in the future to interact with you. Thank you so much. One
Yeah. Thank
request
you.
to students, there is link provided in the chat box. Request everyone to please mark your attendance. And if you attend all our series, you will get the participation certificate also. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Najji, once again.
Yeah.
This brings us to the end of session. Hope to see you all in the next session. Take care, everyone, and stay safe. Thank you.
Yeah, Patish, thank you very much. I would like to end this session with one message. The difference between, I mean, there are a lot of students and student entrepreneurs I know. So just one message to all of you guys. See, the difference between an entrepreneur and you could be just that one thing, which is to get started. So the difference, what makes you from an entrepreneur is that you just have to start. So just go ahead right now, go ahead and start the business, start working on your idea and become an entrepreneur. With that, thank you, stay safe, stay healthy, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.